Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 5 2020 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, it was an even week, especially with everything going on with all the postponements and cancellation of certain games. It definitely was through for the first time for the 2020 season a weirder week than usual. But for my records for both against the spread and straight up, I will take them where they are. So against the spread for this week so far, I am 9-4, and straight up I am 8-5. That equals out to 69 and 61% respectively for both those methods this week. And overall, my record against the spread this year is now 35, 25, and 1, and straight up I'm now 41, 19, and 1, which equals up to 58.2% against the spread and 68% straight up. So definitely one of my best starts in a long time. It's a little disappointing to see the straight up percentage go down a little bit week by week. So hopefully, with over the next several weeks, at the quarter point, I can start shooting up that percentage to get into the low 70s. That'd be a new personal best and just a proud personal accomplishment of mine. Um, and the buys for this week, if anybody interested, the Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers are on bye this week. So if you have Matthew Stafford, Kenny Galladay, Adrian Peterson, DeAndre Swift, T.J. Hawkinson, Matt Prater, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, Mercedes Lewis, the Packers defense, Mason Crosby, if you have any of those players, bench them because they will not be playing this week. I'm going to be doing something for the first time that I have not done since I have done these picks. Usually on Mondays, I will usually maintain the picks when I do my next video the following Monday. But with all the different circumstances going on, and especially with the news that Cam Newton tested positive for COVID-19 and is therefore out for tonight's game against the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to make a switch of my against the spread pick for tonight's game. The line now is at 10.5 in Kansas City's favor, so I'm now going to take the Kansas City Chiefs minus 10.5 and the Kansas City Chiefs straight up due to the significant loss of Cam Newton to COVID-19 being out for this game. I wish him a very quick and speedy recovery from COVID. And also, while I was looking, the Green Bay Packers and Falcons line moved down a full point to 6.5. So even with the injuries to Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard, and Mercedes Lewis being questionable, I think the Falcons defense is still going to be horrendous. So I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here in a swing to Green Bay minus 6.5 and Green Bay straight up. So I will put those two differences into my description, and I will add those to the against the spread and straight up records. But I wanted to make sure before these games played that I have those two changes, and I relay that to the people that are watching this video for the Week 5 games. All right, so time for my thoughts and picks for Week 5's games. So on Thursday, when the 3-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the 3-1 Chicago Bears, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 5.5-point favorites in this game. I like Tampa Bay here minus 5.5, and Tampa Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-2 Carolina Panthers go to the 0-5, I'm sorry, 0-4 or 1-3 Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Carolina Panthers here in an upset, so give me the Carolina Panthers here plus 3.5 in Carolina straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-0 Buffalo Bills, I'm sorry, when the 4-0 Buffalo Bills, when the 4-0 Buffalo Bills go to the 3-0 Tennessee Titans, the Buffalo Bills are 8.5-point favorites in this game. I like Buffalo here minus 8.5 and Buffalo straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-2 Las Vegas Raiders go to the 4-0 or 3-1 Kansas City Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs are 11.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Kansas City Chiefs here minus 11.5 in Kansas City straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-2 Arizona Cardinals go to the 0-4 New York Jets, the Arizona Cardinals are 6.5-point favorites in this game. I like Arizona here minus 6.5 and Arizona straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2-1 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 3-0 Pittsburgh Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 7-point favorites in this game. I like Pittsburgh here minus 7 and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-1 Los Angeles Rams go to the 1-3 Washington football team, the LA Rams are 9-point favorites in this game. I like the Los Angeles Rams here minus 9 and the LA Rams straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2-1 Cincinnati Bengals go to the 3-1 Baltimore Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens are 13.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Baltimore Ravens here to win straight up, but give me the Cincinnati Bengals plus 13.5. Then the next game, when the 1-3 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 0-4 Houston Texans, the Houston Texans are 6.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Jacksonville Jaguars here plus 6.5, but give me the Houston Texans straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-3 Miami Dolphins go to the 2-2 San Francisco 49ers, the Miami Dolphins are 8.5-point underdogs in this game. In my biggest upset of the week, I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins here plus 8.5 and the Miami Dolphins straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-3 Denver Broncos go to the 2-2 or 3-1 New England Patriots, the New England Patriots are 11-point favorites in this game. With the news of Cam Newton, I do not expect him to play in New England in Week 5 against Denver with the 14-day quarantine that is usually expected from people that test positive for COVID. So I'm going to take, but I still believe they're going to win. So give me the New England Patriots here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Denver plus 11. Then the next game, when the 3-1 Indianapolis Colts go to the 3-1 Cleveland Browns in a game that has a lot more interest than anybody expected. The Indianapolis Colts are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like Indianapolis here minus 2.5. Indianapolis straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-4 New York Giants go to the 1-3 Dallas Cowboys in the battle of the force of inaction versus the consistently movable object. The Dallas Cowboys are 9.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Dallas Cowboys here to win straight up, but give me the New York Giants plus 9.5. Then in the Sunday night game, when the 1-3 Minnesota Vikings go to the 4-0 Seattle Seahawks, the Seattle Seahawks are 7-point favorites in this game. I like Minnesota here plus 7, but give me the Seattle Seahawks straight up to win. And then in the Monday night game, when the 1-3 Los Angeles Chargers go to the 2-2 New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Saints are 7.5-point favorites in this game, just like with Tampa. They were 7.5-point favorites in this game. So Justin Herbert going back to the NFC South and a road game. Give me the LA Chargers here plus 7.5. But I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints straight up. All right, so time for my thoughts on each game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Chicago Bears. This is one of those games to where I looked at what the Buccaneers did against the Chargers yesterday, and it was not pretty through the first half. Tom Brady threw his 4th pick six in the last 6 games. Definitely not a stat that I would expect Tom Brady to be on. And they were down 17 points pretty early. It took a massive defensive play by Ndamukong Suh to turn the ball over to get them into a 24-14 spot, 10 down, and they went on a massive run. I thought Tom Brady played fantastic. It was his first 5 TD game since 2018. Ronald Jones ran for 110 yards in a very impressive way. Though I do think the Bucs, I guess fortunately and unfortunately, O.J. Howard did have an Achilles injury, so he's likely out for the year. But at least the tight end position for Tampa was the one that they had the most depth. So now Cameron Brate and Rob Gronkowski definitely move up the depth chart, and they still have 2 good tight ends that can be serviceable for the Bucs offense and Bucs team moving forward. I thought that Tampa's defense through the second half played really well. Carlton Davis with the big pick that sealed in the game. And I thought getting Shaq Barrett got a massive sack. And you look at this Bucs team, and right now they're the 3rd best team in the NFC, in my opinion, behind the Seahawks and Packers. And I think that this is a confidence-building win. And to use Bruce Arians' words that he used yesterday, if this was Jameis Winston last year, they would have lost by 20. And I definitely agree with that. And that is the aura and power of Tom Brady with the offensive weapons that he has. This is definitely one of the big reasons why the Bucs got Brady in the first place. And when you look at the Bears, and this was one of those games where Nick Foles, after that fantastic performance against the Falcons, you come to realize that maybe that was more just bad Falcons defense compared to maybe how really good the Bears are. And Nick, was up and down. He had a bad red zone interception. They only ran the ball for about 28 yards. The only offensive weapon through the air that was effective was Allen Robinson, who had over 100 yards of offense. And look, I'm going to give the Colts defense their credit. They're the number 1 defense in the National Football League pretty much across the board. But I'm going to take the Buccaneers here because I trust that with the Bears' limited offense, I think the Bucs defense can stop it. I don't think David Montgomery is going to be that, great against this Bucs defense. They've done a pretty phenomenal job against McCaffrey, against the Denver running game, even Alvin Kamara, besides the turnovers. They've done a pretty good job stopping the run, and I think with Nick Foles, I think Brady will be motivated from Super Bowl 52. Of course, that's the fun thing that everybody's going to look forward to. Brady Foles 2. I just think Brady's going to be able to effectively move the ball with the weapons that he has. I don't think Godwin and Fournette are going to play, but it seems like Watson, Scotty Miller, Gronk, Mike Evans should be able to keep going. I think that there should be enough offense, and I really think that the Brady offense should be able to do enough against the Bears defense to where I think he puts up about 24 to 27 points. And I think with what the Bears have limited offensively, that should be enough to hold Nick Foles to a game to where now the Bears are kind of in this weird spot where Matt Nagy is playing quarterback hot potato with two quarterbacks that are kind of equal in skill. Just one has a better resume. So that's all I can say. Buccaneers -5.5 and Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the Carolina Panthers over the Atlanta Falcons. This is a game to where I do not really understand how I know Atlanta's at home and usually get about 3 points at home. But honestly, the Carolina Panthers should be the favorites in this game. Like, if you look at Matt Rule, and I'm going to tell people this honestly, he's my second in Coach of the Year candidate through the quarter point. If you look at his 2-2 record, it's a 4-point loss to the Las Vegas Raiders, 2 good victories against the Chargers and Cardinals, 1 nobody expected, and the first one was the first game about McCaffrey. And I just think the Panthers are a better football team right now. They held Kyler Murray to 133 yards passing. They held DeAndre Hopkins only 7 receptions and 41 yards. I know the Cardinals secondary was banged up, and yeah, I think the Cardinals secondary was healthy. They would have played better. Patrick Peterson did get a pick. But I'm looking at this Atlanta secondary right now, and look, Keanu Neal's out tonight. A.J. Terrell could be coming back after his 2-week quarantine, since he was the first player on the Falcons to get on the COVID list. But I'm just looking at the Panthers as a fundamentally consistent team, to where if you look at these 4 games, it's not even the fact that the Falcons could the Falcons score on the Panthers defense? Sure, they could. They have an offense that any pretty much offense could be rivaled with the Seahawks, the Packers, or the Chiefs. But they just can't stop anybody. And I've seen, if they can do a good enough job against the Cardinals defense to hold them to about 21, I think they can do the same thing with the Atlanta offense as well, I think they can hold them to 24. And I think Teddy Bridgewater with Robbie Anderson, Ian Thomas, Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, Mike Davis running, and doing an admirable job replacing Christian McCaffrey right now. I think the Panthers should win this game. I think the Panthers have played better. I think they won one of these games, or won the first meeting last year. And I'm just more sold on Matt Rule and this Carolina Panther team to where at 3-2, you're going to have to consider them for a playoff spot through 5 games because I feel like they're getting better by the week. Their defense is playing better. And they just have this confidence where you're looking at Matt Rule taking this group of guys and it all works. And Joe Brady's doing a good job with Teddy Bridgewater, and Teddy Bridgewater is playing at the Alex Smith level I expected him to play at against the Falcons team that, look, Julio and Calvin have been, banged up. They should be able to play, but it's just a team that offensively, yeah, they can score against anybody, but they're pretty much they're basically a version of the Cowboys to where, or they're like the inverse of the Cowboys to where they have the lead in most of their games, but they can't close it. The Cowboys are the opposite. They're always down so much, and they don't have enough time to come back. The Cowboys don't have enough time to come back, and the Falcons can't hold a lead. That's basically that they're the same team, but just the opposite principle in that way. But I'm going to take the Panthers here just because I've been more impressed with their defense. I think Mike Davis is doing an admirable job, and the Falcons' defense just is really bad. And I think Matt Rule and the Panthers should be able to get a 3rd straight victory without Christian McCaffrey, which I don't think anybody expected to say that. So that's why Carolina here, plus 3.5, and Carolina straight up. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills here just because the primary reason is that the Titans have basically been in quarantine since last Tuesday. This was their bye week due to all the COVID tests they had positive. What I have heard is that basically if they had no positive tests today, if they have to have back-to-back days where nobody tests positive. If they have that, they can open their facility, which would be Wednesday, and they should be able to play the game on Sunday if they don't have any positive tests in back-to-back days moving forward. I just feel like with some of the names that I have seen, you've had Jeffrey Simmons, you've had Adam Humphries, you've had their fullback, you've had a former Raven, Correa. and some other players and staff that have basically had to isolate and not have any practice. And I just feel like some of those weapons are pretty important not to have against the Bills team, which is arguably right now the second best team in the AFC behind the Chiefs. Josh Allen's thrown 12 TDs. Actually, I saw this great stat. They are 13-0 in Josh Allen's career, where he rushes and throws for a touchdown. He also became the third player in NFL history to have 20 rushing touchdowns through his first 3 seasons. And I think Josh Allen very sneakily is in the MVP conversation. And I love what Stephon Diggs has brought to this Bills team. He's brought a very dynamic deep threat. He had 115 yards on 6 receptions yesterday against the Raiders, and he needed all of that. Cole Beasley made a great acrobatic catch for a touchdown. And I just really like what this Bills team is fundamentally. And look, the Titans, look, they're a good team. They've won 3 close games, but if you look at the margin of victory for those 3 games, that is a combined 6 points for 3 wins. That is 2 points per win. And I know you can look at the Bills and go, well, they had a 3-point win against the Dolphins, 3-point win against the Rams, and a 7-point win against the Raiders, taking out the Jets. So, both these teams, haven't had dominating victories. I understand that, but it's just something where I've seen the Bills just play a better sense of football. And if you're going to tell me which team to take, I'm going to take the Bills right now. They won this game last year 14-7. I believe this was Marcus Mariota's second to last start before he got benched for Ryan Tannehill. And they basically won because Mariota couldn't do anything. I think this game is going to be a lot more entertaining offensively on both sides of the ball. But give me Sean McDermott and this Bills roster to go into Tennessee against a team that will be a bit depleted due to the coronavirus with some inactives that I think they're going to be able to win. And I just think those inactives are the reason why I'm also taking them by 8.5 points. I think the Bills are going to run the ball well. They caused a couple big fumbles against Derek Carr yesterday. Quentin Jefferson had a big sack and turnover. Their secondary is really good. A.J. Brown may not be able to play again this week. He's been out the last 2 games before they had their bye. And I just think that is such a limited offensive asset against this Titans team that I think they're going to be able to limit Derrick Henry. And Tannehill is going to have a rough time against the secondary to where Josh Allen just is able to make more plays with his legs and his arm compared to Tannehill and the defense that they have going into this game against the Titans. And by the way, it's a 3-game homestand for the Titans due to the Week 3 game between the Steelers and Titans moving to Week 7. So that's why I like the Buffalo Bills here minus 8.5 and Buffalo Bills straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Las Vegas Raiders. This is one where the Raiders secondary is shot. They had LaMarcus Joyner, Jonathan Abraham go down. Damon Arnett, their first-round pick, has a thumb injury, and he's going to be out for an extended amount of time. And then you look at the Raiders' offense. They didn't have Henry Ruggs for a second straight game. Brian Edwards, one of their prominent receivers, was out, and you don't know if those 2 guys are going to be able to come back. Jacobs only had 45 yards. And I just look at Derek Carr's career in Kansas City. It is not pretty. The games that he has in Kansas City, I also think there's the stat where for Carr being on the West Coast, he has never been able to win a game. I believe he's never been able to win a game under 40 degrees, and I know he's never won a game in Kansas City. He has lost 13-31, 18 points in 2014. I'm trying to think here. He lost 6 points in 2015. In 2016, he lost by 8. 2017, he lost by 11. 2018, he lost by 32. In 2019, he lost by 31. So Derek Carr has had a very rough time, especially the last 2 games, in beating the Kansas City Chiefs. And right now, of how they're playing, they've given up 20 points in their 3 games. That's 20 points per game, and they've put up at least 20. They put up 31, 23, and then 34. So that's 60. They put up 88 points in their 3 games. So if you do the math, that is 88 divided by 3. They put up 29.3 points per game offensively. They've held their opponents to 20 points per game defensively. And just looking at the Raiders' defense, how banged up it is, and the offense banged up it is, I feel like they're going to be able to covered this at 11.5 point spread. Andy Reid's had a sensational record in the division. I don't think he's lost to Gruden. No, he hasn't lost to Gruden in the 2 years that he's come back to the AFC West. And I just feel like with the Chiefs, they're on a roll right now that I don't think the Raiders are going to be able to stop. If they had trouble against the Patriots and against the Bills in the way they did, even though they look more competitive against the Bills, I just think the Chiefs are just too powerful. They're too consistent, and they get to stay home and just have the confidence of beating the Pats. Just say, okay, if we can beat the Pats, we can beat the Raiders. Even though I understand with the Pats game that they had to start Brian Hoyer. So that's why the Kansas City Chiefs here minus 11.5, and the Kansas City Chiefs straight up. The next game, the Arizona Cardinals over the New York Jets. I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals here because I've seen the New York Jets play, and they are the worst team in the league. Sam Darnold sprained his AC joint in the game, and he played through it, so that was a lot of toughness for him. But they really could not move the ball offensively. It was pretty much Brett Ripien throwing 3 interceptions, 2 to Pierre Desir, one for a pick 6, and I believe the other one went to Neville Hewitt in the game that really kept the Jets in the game. And the thing that I don't really quite understand for you Jets fans is why are you panning Adam Gase for both decisions of where with 6 minutes and 19 seconds left, he lets Sam Ficken out there who had a perfect night, kicking the ball, and he kicks the go-ahead field goal to go up 28-27. And then you're panning him that on 4th down, 4th and 3 at the 50, he goes for it to where I would have punted the football. There was 2:07 left or 2:06 left. They had 3 timeouts and a 2-minute warning with Brett Ripien playing a very bad half. I would have just said pin him back and then have the 4 downs to let Sam Darnold try to go through. But he went for it. Bradley Chubb sacks him for a 7-yard loss. And then Melvin Gordon on the very next play basically jams up at the line and runs a counter for a touchdown that seals the game for the Broncos. And look, the Cardinals, they have not been great. They lost a game that I don't think very few people expected after what they had done the first 2 weeks, where they had a lot of promise beating the Niners and the Washington football team, though after you look at it, it's something where the Niners were decimated with injuries. And, well, I guess maybe not for them the first week, but the Niners maybe aren't as good as we thought we were, and the Washington football team, most teams are doing that to the Washington football team. And I just feel like the Cardinals went from being a contender status through the first 2 games to now after these 2 losses, the way they looked, especially with the Lions blowing the game that they did. By the way, the Lions have now blown 6 straight games with double-digit leads. That's an NFL record. That you look at the Cardinals and go, they are back on the borderline between a contender and a pretender. You're not going to get anything out of the Jets game, personally, out of that sense. But I do think for Cardinals fans and just looking at the Cardinals now, do I think they can make the playoffs? Sure. I don't think they could. But I think that definitely division aspects and deeper playoff aspects than that are pretty much dead at this point. And now you really have to think, okay, they're going to play Dallas, and they're going to play, I believe they play Dallas next week. So, again, how much are you going to get out of that? But I would tell everybody out there, start every Cardinal in fantasy, start them against Dallas because that'll be a offensive Big 12 shootout that is fitting of the Big 12, hence Texas A&M, or Iowa State and Oklahoma from this past Saturday. I'm going to take the Cardinals here minus 6.5. The Jets just, I think they just played their competition, and in any other game to where you have a competent offense, especially with Sam Darnold's injury, they should be able to cover pretty well. Gase has been on a pretty bad losing streak. He doesn't really play well in the NFC. I don't think did he win an NFC game last? No, okay, he played the NFC East last year. He's playing the NFC West this year, so he went from the worst division in the conference to the best division, and you're going to see how the Cardinals, even through their flaws, should be able to handle the Jets pretty well. So that's like the Arizona Cardinals are minus 6.5, and the Arizona Cardinals straight up. The next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Philadelphia Eagles. This is one of those games to where, look, the Philadelphia Eagles pulled off a very ugly but impressive victory against the San Francisco 49ers. It was a rough game. It was awkward. Nick Mullins played like a Nick Mulligan. If for the Niner fans, they would like to have that game back, or a Mulligan for another do-over with C.J. Beathard. He threw for 200 yards. He threw 2 horrendous picks, one around the goal line, and the other one was to John Singleton, who ran it all the way back into the end zone, did the easiest pick 6 of his career. And, Carson Wentz, though, he made some big throws to John Hightower. Devin Fuglsang, a 6th-round pick out of Old Dominion, had a massive play, and I thought that the Eagles' defense did a fantastic job bullying the Niners' defensive line to limit the running game and put a lot of pressure on Nick Mullins. However, when you look at this game against the Steelers, this is a much different story. I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers as a team that is rested. They're confident with the defense that they have, that they can shut down Miles Sanders or Carson Wentz on option plays. The offensive line is banged up basically across the board. They do not have Jason Peters, Isaac Semalio, and Brandon Brooks on the offensive line. The only two starters on the offensive line are, I believe, Lane Johnson, who left the game last night, and Jason Kelce, the most consistent center that they have and the most consistent offensive lineman they have on the Eagles team. And then you look at with the Eagles, you have Deshaun Jackson dealing with an injury. Alshon Jeffrey could be back, which would be a big help. But you also look at the secondary. Cravon LeBlanc couldn't play. Darius Slade went down with injury. I know he came back. But this Eagles team is just too decimated to where, you were fortunate enough that Nick Mullins basically handed you the game with the turnovers that he had. I don't think Ben is going to have that issue. And I know the Steelers, they have gone 59 or 60 straight games now with a sack. I believe that streak will continue. And I just feel like they're going to be able to run the ball well, and Ben's going to be able to make more throws with the weapons that he has to win this game in a pretty good home game. And just for context, I also believe the Steelers will be motivated because I remember in week 3, in Carson Wentz's third game, they beat the Steelers 34-3 in one of the most surprising routes that you had seen up to that point for Carson Wentz. Boys, a lot changed over those last 4 years for both squads. And I do think hopefully Ben and most of those guys that were on that team that remember that beating take that to heart and play Philadelphia much more competitively this time around. So that's why I like the Pittsburgh Steelers are -7 and the Pittsburgh Steelers straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams over the Washington Football Team. I'm going to take the Rams here because I've seen them play well enough against the NFC East team just yesterday against the New York Giants. It was concerning. Sean McVay had, I believe, 250 or 270 yards. It was the lowest amount of offensive yards that he had ever had as the coach of the Rams. So that was a huge concern, especially against a Giants team that doesn't have a lot of big playmakers defensively, besides arguably Kyle Fackrell. The guy that got the first pick for the Giants, which was turned over, I'd never even heard of. And it was just, besides that first drive of Everett and Goff's touchdown pass to Kupp, that offense could not move the ball, which stunned me. But I just look at what the Washington Football Team did yesterday against the Baltimore Ravens. I feel like they're going to be able to run the ball pretty well. Lamar Jackson had his longest touchdown run of his career at 50 yards. He had 2 big touchdowns to Mark Andrews. And the Ravens just seemed like they could impose their will against the Washington Football Team to where I think the Rams can somewhat do the same thing. Look, they gave a fake punt from Sam Cook on 4th down to Miles Boykin. And I think, look, they have Johnny Hecker, who was actually a high school quarterback, so they can do similar things. I like the Rams' running attack here. I think the Rams' offensive line should be able to do a good job. Chase Young may not play again. And I just look at this Washington team is just really not that great besides Terry McLaurin, who had a career high in receiving yards against the Ravens. Though I do want to mention a quick point about Ron Rivera. There was a report coming out that on Monday he dressed down starting quarterback Dwayne Haskins and said that if his play did not improve, he was going to bench him. And I had a problem with this for one simple reason. The problem is that Ron Rivera said that he was going to go to Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen, the guy that got benched for Will Grier, and the fact that basically, with everything going on in Washington, not knowing about Alex Smith, he was given a lifeline by Ron Rivera for a 5th-round pick from the Panthers just to come as a backup. Alex Smith is cleared. And I understand. Look, Alex Smith has had over, 18 surgeries. And, you really don't know of his leg. But if you are going to make this change, put it in Alex Smith's hands. Because I've seen Kyle Allen play, and he has a lot of he has some Gardner Minshew in him where he might play well for a game or two, but he's not going to do that well long term. And this was the 15th overall pick in the draft you're going to throw away for Kyle Allen. I can live with Alex Smith because I believe Alex Smith is better than those two guys. And personally, I would root for that comeback player of the year story. And to me, I just think Ron Rivera is making a massive mistake. I would consider firing him for just being that, or for coaching malpractice. I know he's not going to get fired. And look, you can say, why are you being too critical of him? He's defending Alex or the catch stuff. Look, I'm just trying to just bring up here. If you're going to replace Dwayne Haskins, give it to Alex Smith. Don't try to sell people that Kyle Allen will move this team better than Dwayne Haskins. Heck, even for Terry McLaurin, I can just make that point. At least Dwayne and Terry played with each other at Ohio State. Kyle Allen has no chemistry with Terry McLaurin. And that's the best thing the Washington football team has offensively, maybe besides Antonio Gibson. So that's all I wanted to say about that. I think Ron Rivera should stick with Haskins for the remainder of the year unless he gets hurt. Or if you're really going to make that change, if Haskins does go down, put Alex Smith in there. If you want to win, Alex Smith is your best option, not the former scrub backup that you had in Carolina named Kyle Allen. So that's why I like the LA Rams here -9 and the LA Rams straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Cincinnati Bengals. This is one of those games that's fairly easy. It's very much like Washington last week for the Ravens, playing a team that's not really that great, playing a rookie that, look, congratulations to Joe Burrow, 300 yards, 3 straight games, looked pretty good. Tyler Boyd made some big plays. Joe Mixon had one of his best rushing days ever. He was actually the #1 running back in terms of yardage and TDs. I believe he also caught another touchdown. And I think the Bengals, they had some promise. I thought that was a nice victory against the Jaguars that, after how the Bengals have been playing, they earned that victory through their play. I just think this Ravens team is completely different. The Ravens, last year with Lamar, with the way he was playing, pretty much dominated the Bengals in both games. Both games really weren't even contests. And I look at the Bengals here. Do I think they're going to put up a better fight? Yes. And the reason why I'm taking them plus 13.5 is 2 reasons. One, the Bengals this year against the spread are 3-0-1 in the 4 lines that they had. They had the 1 push with the Chargers with a 3-point loss, and the other 3 games they won on the line. And basically, also what I saw out of the Ravens game was I had the victory until RG3 threw that horrible pick, which got the Washington football team to cover on 14 points. So I'm basically going to say that I feel like even if the Ravens get up to a nice massive lead as they usually do, I do think that Joe Burrow, we're going to play soft, and he can get a backdoor cover to get it within 13 points to win the game. I think this game will be interesting because I feel like the Bengals, they're going to actually put up a fight that some people are going to be more surprised by. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game got a little bit closer than people would expect. But with this one, we're at home. We've been pretty dominant against the division with Lamar through our run. He's only lost 1 game outside of Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield in the regular season. So I will take those stats and that knowledge to the bank in this game against the Bengals, and probably another nice, consistent game for the Ravens moving forward to get to 4-1. So that's why I like the Baltimore Ravens here straight up. But that's why I have the Cincinnati Bengals plus 13.5. The next game, the Houston Texans over the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is one where I literally have to trust Deshaun Watson in this one. The Jaguars through 4 weeks, they have played better than expectation, but it's not by much. I was really impressed after week 1, and that's still going to be now looking back at it 3 weeks later, that's going to be an anomaly loss for the Colts for some random reason, how they lost to Gardner Minshew and the Jags. And then look, they had that great game against the Titans, and then the last 2 weeks have been They played horrible against the Dolphins, who just lost to the Seahawks. I guess that's, and they had an okay game against the Bengals where it was up and down, but they let Joe Mixon run all over the place with him. And I just look at the Texans and go, I have to trust Deshaun Watson here. Look, the Jags have played better football, and they have a win. So, but at the end of the day, both teams are going to be at the same record. I can't see Bill O'Brien losing this football game with the team that he has. Like, I feel like Deshaun, we'll put it this way. Look, I know the offensive line is horrible, and Deshaun's basically just trying to, the defense can't stop anybody, and James Robinson should have a good game against them just like Dalvin Cook did. They have DJ, they have Tyler, they have Keelan Cole, they have some weapons, and they have familiarity. And I remember last year when Gardner Minshew played the Texans, it was basically a 1-point game to where Doug Marrone got the game-tying touchdown but went for 2 and could not get it and lost the game. So I could definitely see the Jags winning this football game, but I can't see the Texans with Deshaun Watson, as great as he is, losing this game. Like, I'm going to take the Jags here because, I'm going to just use that line I just said from week for last year. Gardner Minshew was 1 2-point conversion away from beating the Texans last year. So I think this game is going to be within, 6 points. And with the Jags, they've been, being more competitive than you think. And I just can't trust the Texans defense that much. Justin Jefferson in another massive game. I think DJ Chark and all those weapons can do similar things. And just going to depend on can Bill O'Brien's defense hold up just a little bit in order for the Jags to get this victory, but we shall see. I think it's going to be an interesting game, but give me the Texans here just for the better quarterback because I just cannot see how Bill O'Brien and his Texans teams go to 0-5. If he loses his game against Jacksonville, he's going to get the rest of the year, but he's going to get fired at the end of the year because they're not making the playoffs, and this was a massive disappointment caused by his own doing as the general manager of the Texans for this debacle of a season for Houston. So that's why I like the Houston Texans here straight up, but that's why I have the Jaguars plus 6.5. The next game, in my biggest upset of the week, the Miami Dolphins over the San Francisco 49ers. I was just so disappointed in the Niners. And look, Nick Mullins, I was a fan of his. He lost pretty much a good amount of credibility for me there. I think, you can maybe move on from him because you just can't have the decisions that he had. And you can't make the throws, the picks that he had be under that much duress. And I know the Eagles' defensive line is good, but my God, it was amazing. If he had time, he was worse. The quicker the throws were to George Kittle and Debo and Brandon Ayuk, the better he played. If he had time, he couldn't do anything, which was amazing. They're, and I just look at the Dolphins, and I know, look, Ryan Fitzpatrick had a bad game. Ryan Fitzpatrick threw another 2 picks. He didn't have a touchdown for the second time in 4 games. It's going to be 2 a time sooner than later, and I think it could happen in this game. But I just have to look at the Dolphins and go, they've had moments to where I don't know who's going to start. I think Shanahan will go with Beathard. But C.J. Beathard, there was some reason why he was behind Nick Mullins in the depth chart. So, if you give time for C.J. Beathard, how are you going to do? Can George Kittle dominate the game? Sure. And that might be the only way the Niners win this game. Look, he had 148 yards, 10-plus receptions and a touchdown. And he looked, like the best tight end in football or, one of the best tight ends in football. And I know it might be nuts saying, you're playing the Niners defensive line. Richard Sherman could come back, but D Ford's on the IR now. And I just don't know with Beathard what kind of quarterback you're going to get. And I'm just hoping that with Fitzpatrick and this offense that I've seen against this banged-up Niners secondary, Mosley had a concussion. I don't know if he's going to come back. They also had I think they had Witherspoon go down with an injury. So this secondary is banged up, and I'm just going to have to hope for, which I believe that Fitzpatrick plays well enough that C.J. Beathard just doesn't outplay him, or that Fitzpatrick plays bad enough that Brian Flores goes to Tua in the game, and the Dolphins are able to, win the game that way. Could I see the Niners winning this game? Absolutely. I don't know with Beathard and Mullins. I don't know what he's going to do, and I just don't see anybody else. And even if it is Mullins or Beathard, the only weapon they have is George Kittle, and I can't see the Dolphins, especially with Brian Flores being a defensive mind, literally just losing a game by throwing it to one guy. So I'm going to trust Flores here that he's going to, his team's going to be okay enough to play a banged-up Niners team. I don't know, the Dolphins suffered some injuries themselves. I remember one to Shaq Lawson. But I'm going to take the Dolphins here, and big upset just because the quarterback uncertainty and the injuries to the Niners are the reasons why I have to go with the Dolphins. And I just feel like, again, if Fitzpatrick plays bad enough, he'll get replaced by Tua sooner in that game than later. Sounds like the Dolphins here plus 8.5, and the Dolphins straight up. Again, probably the weirdest pick I have out of the whole bunch. The next game, the New England Patriots over the Denver Broncos. This is the game where I have to trust Brian Hoyer. I don't think Cam's going to get cleared. The Pats are at home. The Broncos have done routinely bad, even through Peyton Manning this time in New England. They don't really win in New England that often. And I thought Ripien, he had some nice moments, and they could get Philip Lindsay back for this game. I don't think that's going to matter that much. I just think, again, Brian Hoyer is not going to make as many mistakes as Ripien, and they're going to ride that defense to short fields with Sony. I know Sony's out tonight, but they may not have Sony, but they'll ride James White, who should be back. And Rex Burkhead do a win over a Denver team that has some potential, but with the secondary they have, with basically Jerry Jeudy as their primary offensive weapon with Noah Fant out, I think the Pats defense and Brian Hoyer not making mistakes can be enough to win this game. Even if Cam can't, Cam probably not playing a second game due to the coronavirus. I'm going to take Denver here plus 11, though, because I feel like the Broncos, they have some talent. They're going to get their running back, or they're getting Lindsey back, and I feel like they're going to make this game competitive in a low-scoring affair with just all these weird injuries and circumstances in this game. So, and I think 11 is way too many, especially with some of the throws Ripien had, and the potential that Denver's had throughout the year playing close games within 11 points. So that's why I like New England here straight up, but I have Denver plus 11. The next game, the Colts over the Browns. This is one of those games to where I think the Browns, for the first time in a long time, are genuinely a contending football team for the playoffs. I think they could be somewhat sneaky in the division. They haven't well, I guess maybe besides Baltimore. Okay, I'll strike that back. They're going to be a playoff team. They look like it. They ran for 307 yards on the Dallas Cowboys. That is the most rushing yards given up by the Dallas Cowboys since their inaugural season in 1960. And the Browns are 3-1, and this is their best start in arguably 2007 or maybe 2002. The last couple times the Browns were in playoff contention. I thought Kareem Hunt played a fantastic game. Odell Beckham Jr. a 3-touchdown game, like I said earlier, first time since 2018 to get 3 touchdowns in a game. And by the way, Jarvis Landry, beautiful pass to Odell Beckham to start the scoring there. And I was really impressed with the Browns. I just think the reason why I'm taking the Colts is this. After what you've seen out of the Dallas Cowboys for weeks, this is nothing new. The Cowboys are giving everybody an opportunity to score in bushels and bushels of points. That's why I said next week the Cardinals go to Dallas, I believe. Or I'm sorry, yeah, the Cardinals play the Cowboys. I forget exactly where it is. But if you have any of those any of those players in the Cardinals of fantasy, start them because they're going to have a Big 12 type shootout in that game, and that's going to be a lot of points scored. But I have trust in the Colts defense. They are the number 1 defense pretty much across the board in all categories. And I think it was most impressive against the Bears because this was Matt Nagy and the Bears offense, which had just come off of, 2 17-plus point comebacks. And to only hold them to 11, they held the Bears rushing attack, like I said, to about 28 yards. Allen Robinson was the primary weapon. And the injury to Nick Chubb is going to be significant. He should be out for 6 weeks with an MCL sprain. I do think if they limit Kareem Hunt, I do think Kareem Hunt can run effectively, and that 2-year, $13 million extension they gave him looks really good right now. But I'm going to take the Colts here because I have trust in the fact that they have, they're going to be able to move the ball well. I feel like Phillip Rivers with T.Y., with Mo Alley Cox, with Jack Doyle, I don't think played, or he might have. I might have to look. But with the Colts weapons that they have, I think that they were able to move the ball well enough. And I have to trust the Colts in this game to hold the Browns defensively without Chubb. And I think if you're going to put the game on Baker's hands, that's going to be the issue. And I know that Phillip Rivers, he hasn't had to do a lot, and you can argue the same thing with Phillip Rivers. That's what the Browns, that's what they want to do. But I think Jonathan Taylor going with that offensive line, they should be able to create some holes for the Colts to win and move the ball. And I think that's going to be one of the big reason why the Colts win this game in this fashion. So that's like the Indianapolis Colts are -2.5, and Indianapolis Colts straight up. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the New York Giants. This game, like I jokingly said before, but I was being somewhat serious, this is the force of inaction versus the consistently movable object. It's a good parody of the irresistible force versus the immovable object. This is the exact opposite of that game. Or it's the exact same premise, but just the opposite negative way. The force of inaction versus the consistently movable object of the Cowboys defense. I have to take the Cowboys here because the Giants have only scored 3 touchdowns in 4 games. Let that sink in. Against some solid defenses, but still 3 touchdowns in 4 games. And yet they were within 1 score in 2 of those games. Which is pretty, stunning. But I have to take the Cowboys here because also it's Dak Prescott against the NFC East. Dak Prescott, through his career, has dominated this division in a pretty remarkable way. If I bring up the split here, let me see here. Let's go career here. For Dak against the NFC East, he has gone 18-6 in his career against his own division. I don't think he has lost 1 game to the Giants in those several games he's had against against the Giants over the past 5 years. I think that's pretty safe and sound for me there. The last time that he played them, it was pretty soundly a dominating victory last year. And I just have to have faith in the Cowboys that they are just able to hold the Giants enough to where, like, if they put up 24, I think the Cowboys put up 30, 31, or they can hold them to 24. I do believe the Giants will put up the most points they have offensively this entire year, and they're going to score. I'm going to go this far. They're going to score 3 touchdowns in this game against this Cowboys defense because it's gosh, it's awful in every single way. But in this game, it's kind of like the opposite with the Colts. I got to go with the better offense here and home field advantage against a team that they both should be 0-4. But I'm going to take the better quarterback and the more dynamic offense in the game, where the Giants have been more ineffective. I've seen the Giants compete twice. I've seen the Cowboys compete 4 times, and I'll take that. I'll take the 4 competing over the 2. But that's like the Dallas Cowboys here straight up, but the New York Giants plus 9.5. The next game, the Seattle Seahawks over the Minnesota Vikings. This is one where the Minnesota Vikings have played the Seahawks the last 2 years in Seattle. They did not win both games. Both games were fairly close in ways, and they came down to some close decisions and other ticky-tack plays. But it's just that argument of also, it's again, Kirk Cousins in prime time against an above 500 team versus Russell Wilson at home at night. Russell Wilson is one of the best primetime spotlight quarterbacks in the NFL. He's won this game the last 2 years. In fact, the only time that he lost the game was back in 2017 with Kirk Cousins as part of Washington. And I have just faith in let Russ cook in this game with the offense that he has. DK, Tyler, you have Freddie Swain making play, Greg Olsen, Will Disley, Chris Carson came back. You have Travis Homer, Carlos Hyde should be able to come back. And I just have all the confidence in Seattle that they win this game in a primetime battle to go to 5-0 and have their best record since I believe the Super Bowl. I don't even think they were 5-0 back in 2013 when they made the Super Bowl. So this would be the first time maybe ever in franchise history the Seahawks were 5-0. That's like the Seahawks here straight up at the Minnesota Vikings plus 7. And finally, the New Orleans Saints over the Los Angeles Chargers. This is one where I have to take the Saints. They're at home. They played really well. They went on a 35-0 run against the Lions after they were down 14-0. And I just look at the Chargers, and it's basically, like I said before, it's the same principle with Tampa. I think the Chargers will give the Saints a good run for their money. They have offensive weapons. I know Eckler being out is massive, and he should be out 4 to 6 weeks. But I don't have faith in that with Eckler out, Mike Williams is dealing with a hamstring injury. I think the Saints can hold up with the Chargers, even though the Chargers, for the 3rd time in NFL history, were the first team to have 5 touchdowns by 5 undrafted players. And I like their matchup with Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry, and especially with the Saints secondary with Lattimore, with Jenkins, with Marcus Williams going down with injury. Ryan Ramczyk left the game yesterday. This Saints team's going to be banged up, and I just feel like it's basically going to be a carbon copy of the Bucs game, to where the Chargers are going to put up a great fight. They could, maybe take the win, but I think the Saints just have enough grit and enough talent, and with Michael Thomas probably coming back this week for Monday Night Football, that should be too much offensive firepower for the Chargers secondary without Chris Harris and a couple other secondary guys to overcome to get this win. Should be a great game. It's always fun seeing Breeze going against his former team, but I do think the Chargers do have their future quarterback in Justin Herbert going after what I've seen out of the last 3 weeks, and Tyrod Taylor, time as the starting quarterback, is over in the NFL. So that's why I like the Saints here straight up, but the LA Chargers plus 7.5. So those are my thoughts and comments and picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please go to the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. There are several great prognosticators from Half Moon's Picks, Bridgewater's Finest, Luca Rosano, all those guys and gals that make picks and predictions just like I do. Please check them out and say hello to them. Also, Sports Fan Entertainment is a great YouTube channel. Check out his picks. He does great picks as well. And that's it. So until next week, this is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, signing off. Everybody, please stay safe, wash your hands, and wear a mask consistently. And until next week, this is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, signing off. So long.